Hello, everybody, and happy Sunday to you. Today, we're taking a look at the markets for this week and talking about trading setups that may be interesting to look out for. Now, I have a couple really hot topic pairs to look at, as well as maybe gold as well. We're going to talk all about that in this video, so make sure to stay tuned to the very end and hit that like button if you like this sort of stuff. Again, happy Sunday. I do this each Sunday, and what I do is I go through and I talk about trade ideas and setups that may be interesting. But I wanted to actually start with last week's trade that just went absolutely crazy. So last week we talked about dollar yen, which is going to be our first currency pair on the list today. So dollar yen, we bought back here inside of the private Discord channel and closed out all the way up here. It was an incredible run last week with the dollar just strengthening off of Fed news, which we're going to touch on in just a little bit. But basically, we caught the low there. So here's the 4-hour view of dollar yen. You can actually see we tried to take a trade here. I took a very small profit over here, so I bought. You can see the orders on my broker here, and I bought down in these lows, ended up closing out for just a little bit better than break even, but then decided to double back and get back in at support structure here. So we basically came back down to that level. I entered, and this was the one that I was really looking for. So price launched up into the stratosphere, it feels like, and then finally on Friday, when price started to pull back and broke back down the other way, price action just was telling me, hey, you know what, go ahead and lock in your profits. I trailed my stop, or I basically trailed the stop following up price. And then when it got hit, basically I just took my profits for the week. So great little trade there. Congrats to other members who also caught this trade with me. Dollar yen was a great mover there. By the way, if you want to see all the trades that I'm taking in real time, I share them within our private Discord. So again, here's just a recap of what I just said. Basically, I went long on dollar yen. Here's the initial trade. Bought at that support level with a fundamental bias to the long side. Feel free to pause if you want to look at this more thoroughly, and then ended up just updating the trade throughout the week and closed out for a really great profit. So 153 pips of profit there on dollar yen. If you'd like to join us within the private Discord channel, you get access to all the trades that I'm taking, the chat room that we have available, as well as coaching webinars and much more. All of the information to join, if you'd like to join the Discord, is down below in the description. It's that first link. Just sign up on the website. So dollar yen going into this week, however, still a currency pair that I'm very interested in myself. In fact, I kind of like the idea of looking for a pullback here and maybe trying to catch the rebound. Now, one area that sticks out to me like a sore thumb is going to have to be this level of demand at that 38.2% retracement. Again, big run up here this week, caught the majority of the move on that basically the dip back to support, rallied all the way, caught that trade until right around here. And now I'm saying, you know what, hey, if price drops enough here, I may look to get back into the trade with a stop relatively tight, just like I did back here. My stop loss was very tight, so my risk reward actually ended up being pretty dang good. I think it was like a 4, maybe 4.5 to 1, something like that. So we'll see if we can get something like that. But again, 38.2% retracement with a stop loss under structure kind of makes sense to me. Again, if I take that trade, you guys will get notified on Discord. You'll get a text message or whatever if you're in the Discord channel. But the idea being, if price does pull back and gives us that discounted pullback area, I still like the dollar long. And my main thesis for that is that overall, the Fed's monetary policy and tightening stance seems to be headed in the right direction for a stronger US dollar. It's been that way for a while, and we finally got the breakout on dollar yen on the higher time frames here that we were looking for, right? Downward structure, finally got the breakout, the follow through that kept me in the trade. And yeah, still looking for opportunities to get long on this if price does decide to pull back. So there's dollar yen. We'll take a look now at euro USD, which is going to be our next one for the day. Euro dollar, I talked about this on Friday when I made a video about this. So we made a huge momentum push to the downside there. Very impressive sell-off for the bears here. And now the question is, if we do get a retracement, is there an opportunity to get short if you missed the initial run? Well, my thought is that perhaps if we get a little bit of dollar weakness, maybe this week with some volatility in the news. By the way, we do have a big news event, which I'll point out in just a moment. Maybe you get something like this. Maybe you get a pullback to that 38.2% retracement, which sits nicely at resistance, right? So if price pops up here a little bit further on the euro dollar, there may be an opportunity to get a nice premium short, in my opinion. Please remember, this is not financial advice, and I am and can be wrong quite often with my trade setups. It's not about winning huge all the time. It's just about cutting your losses small, right? Keeping your losers controlled. What most traders do is like, let's say that they shorted euro dollar right here, right? What they would do is they would hold it and hold it and hold it and hold it until the account blew up, right? That's just what retail traders on average statistically do. We can see that again and again in the data. I've showed that many times on the channel. When you look at broker positioning, you see retail traders holding on to losses for a long period of time. So what we try and do here on the channel, we try and focus very heavily on cutting losers very quickly and holding on to winners for as long as possible. So speaking of winners, again, bears in control in this market, looking for a retest of resistance before trying to potentially go short in favor of that dollar story that we're seeing play out in the fundamentals. Next up, we'll take a look at pound dollar here. Taking a look at the pound, you can see a big pullback here, a big sell-off there after we basically broke structure here to the upside. We've talked about this a couple different times recently on the channel, so I won't beat a dead horse here, but the idea being we are now seeing impulsive corrective, sorry, my cat is making a bunch of noise, impulsive corrective moves, right? And it seems like that is the story right now. We're seeing a continued push overall to the downside. And in my mind, it looks like pound dollar in the longer term looks like it wants to head back down to the lows there at something like 1.32. We've got a big level there. And in fact, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to mark this as just a level there. Potential target number one for the shorts there, a move back down to 1.32, let's call it, give or take. So on the lower time frames, how could we look at that? Well, again, we kind of had this just another impulsive move, and measuring these impulsive moves has been quite the interesting story to follow, right? You've got these impulsive moves, corrective moves, right? We saw the 38.2 come in, but I mentioned on my Friday video that what I like more here on the pound dollar is the idea of a pullback to the 50% retracement, similar to the Euro USD, right? A move back up to levels like this. I think that's a great area personally to see if we can find some downside. Of course, looking for price action on the lower time frames to help guide that with stop losses, etc., right? Remember, I make a lot of ideas on my channel. I share a lot of thoughts and ideas. If I actually end up taking a trade, you'll see them in Discord if you're a member. And also, if you see them on my channel, it doesn't mean that they're going to be an absolute winner every single time. What I share here, it's as I mentioned before, it's about winning big when you're right and cutting losses quickly when you're wrong. So, for example, let's say price pops up here, you see some candlestick pattern, you see some extra confluence that you say, hey, you know what, I like this, and you make your own decision. But stop losses tight in case things do continue to rally higher, and then you're looking for a best case scenario where price can continue lower. And in my case, what I'm looking to do is trail stops and try and let a winner run, maybe even getting us back down to that target at 1.32. Let's take a look now at gold here, a big popular currency pair. Well, not really a currency pair, but a big pair that people have a lot of interest in recently after the major sell-off that we saw on the 4-hour and even the daily chart. We saw a falling out of favor with the Fed's meeting there. A lot of bullishness erased overnight, it seems like, for the gold market. And depending on how you draw your trend lines, we've seen this thing really just either way make some serious breakouts, right? We had this kind of structure to the upside, just completely faded, failed there. And then this level failed there, right? Bulls just not able to get anywhere with these pullbacks, right? Now, what I mentioned recently, my thoughts on gold is short term, I do still think that we have more downside to come. Maybe not right away, but let's look at some areas of interest that we could mark on the daily chart. So again, I'm going to get some levels out with you guys. So let's take a look here at our horizontal ray. We can mark levels like this, right? 1770, let's call it, and of course that low back down there at 1725, give or take, right? So these are levels where we could see price potentially head lower now that we're seeing, again, big failure on the higher time frames. So if we take a look at the 4-hour chart again, there's that big failure, right? That breakout. Price tried to retest resistance, and it did. Very quickly found sellers, and sure enough, ended the week pretty much down. So when we look at this, when we take a look at the potential target there sitting, of course, we've got to get through this area, which was, by the way, this was a target that we had mentioned earlier on in the week. We talked about, marking this level for a potential hit. We actually nailed that level. Now we're sitting on it. And the question is, if we break, maybe there's stuff like this to happen, right? Break, retest, and continuations down to those levels that we marked on the higher time frames, the daily, etc. right? So when we look at this, where are we going from here? Well, you know, if you're super bearish on the gold market, I got some levels up here that could be interesting, right? So where we failed previously there on January 27th could be an interesting level to look for a retest. So if we do get a little bit of a bullish swing back the other direction, maybe there's something up here around that 50% retracement. Could be a conservative entry, 1817, looking for shorts, with the idea of being like, okay, well, maybe, you know, you see something like this. Maybe you see, let's say we're conservative with it entering right around here. You know, and then targeting kind of our structure points that we've already discussed, right? So the previous swing low right here, and then of course maybe a little bit more aggressive of a hold, or a little bit more of a patient hold, if you will, with the move down to this level here, right? So let me actually clean this up. But these are two ideas for gold, depending on how aggressive you are with it. But again, I like this because this is a pretty key structural target, which we already tagged once. So if we were to get a retest, it would make sense, if that fails, to head on back down there. And maybe even just maybe if we start to see real pressure come in, something like this. So how would you play this? Well, you could do one of two things. You could take one of these trades. You could take none of these trades. You could make your own decisions, which you absolutely should. But if you're more looking for the bigger move, there could be that move to 1770. I wouldn't be surprised if we do tag that this week, if dollar strength does continue on unemployment figures, which, by the way, is very important news. Let's talk about that here for a second. We'll switch over to forexfactory.com. Take a look at this, you guys. So we've got a lot of red folders going into this week, which you should definitely be aware of before you place trades. You should know, kind of generally speaking, when the news is coming, so you don't get blindsided, especially if you're a day trader. You know, as a swing trader myself, I'm not super interested in trying to avoid every single news event. In fact, you know, I don't really mind holding my trades through news because, again, my trades are longer term and not so subject to short-term volatility. But anyways, so we've got several things, right? Australia has some rate statement news and cash rate, that sort of stuff. Big monetary policy potential impact on Monday for Australian pairs, Australian dollar, of course. The NZD seems to stick out here. We've got some red folders for USD. So pretty much red folders every day. And I would just recommend, you know, have this pulled up on your screen if you're really day trading, especially. Keep an open mind with this stuff. This could seriously move the market. So you've got Bank of England monetary policy, lots of stuff this week. And then, of course, the big Friday NFP stuff, right? So we've got non-farm payroll, which is every month, first Friday of the month, which is a big deal. We will probably be streaming this. If you'd like to come on for a live stream and join us there, should be really fun. We'll watch the spike together. If you're not already, make sure to subscribe down below. Hit the notification button so that you can get in on the stream whenever it goes live. It's a great way to make sure that you don't miss it. But yeah, very impactful stuff for the US dollar, some pound news, and some Aussie and NZD news this week. So definitely a stacked week in terms of volatility and news. So don't miss this week's big news. Be careful around this. Of course, we will probably be trading it within the private Discord. If you're not already in the group, you already know where to find us down below in the description. We will probably be watching things like gold and most US dollar pairs going into this week. Let's continue on. We'll take a look, for example, now at pound yen. Here's another one that I wanted to talk about with you guys. So pound yen also kind of fallen out of favor. The pound, here's the thing, right? The pound is less attractive right now because of sort of the risk-off sentiment that the market is giving us, right? We're seeing the concern rise around Russia and Ukraine, right? That situation there. We're also seeing, you know, monetary policy tightening in the U.S. and being so aggressive against inflation is just kind of calming markets in general. It's cooling down all the stock markets, right? And when we see less risk-on sentiment like that, we can sometimes see some of the foreign currencies like the pound, the Australian dollar, the CAD, little bit of a cool down too, right? As they generally share a positive correlation to worldwide stock markets. If the stock markets are rising, a lot of times we do see things like the pound do a little bit better, the Aussie do a little bit better. It's not a perfect correlation, granted, but lately that's kind of been the trend. So taking a look at the pound yen here, the dollar, well, actually, let's take a look real quick. So the S&P 500, right? S&P 500 has had a really rough time, but we ended up strong there last week without taking out the lows at 42.22. So if you've been looking at SPX 500, this is a pretty good example of what I would call a pretty strong bottom for now. I would say this has a pretty good chance. I'd say a 75% chance personally. Again, that is a little bit anecdotal based on just my experience in markets, but mostly what I would say is most likely based on the strength of this bullish market, that there is a good chance, probably a 75% is my guess, as to, you know, we probably head higher, right? That we break out and start to form a low. We held this all week. We didn't break those lows. If we break those lows, of course, that goes out the window and we could see continued selling. But for now, holding those lows to me is a sign of bullishness and potentially a breakout incoming on markets. So we'll take a look at that later on in the week for sure. SPX 500 could be, in my opinion, more on the buy side, looking for breakouts, etc. So when we go back to something like pound yen, I'm still bullish on this thing, generally speaking, especially against the yen, right? So what I'd love to see is we are seeing those higher lows. We've seen a bottom there, January 24th down at 153. But now the question is, can we continue to see those higher lows, and can we start to see breakouts, right? If we look at the 1 hour chart, this is looking nice, but remember, the downward pressure is still there, and we'd probably like to see some breakout concepts here, right? So we struggled at this trend line here to really break. So maybe if we get something like, you know, a big breakout of structure here, retest of that trend line could be a nice opportunity to kind of trade that bounce and to continue higher on the pound yen. So maybe, for example, let's say we get our long position ideas out, right? And we're looking for something like a break and retest concept with targets being, let's see, where could the pound yen go? Well, natural place, as we always mention, we always try and focus on the previous high, right? It makes a lot of sense when you're in a trending market. If the market is going to resume its upward trend, we would expect it to probably try and retest, at the very least, maybe even try and break through the previous swing high, which is a massive risk reward if you were to get something this perfect. But the main idea being, you know, if you get that breakout, you get momentum. Maybe this is a higher time frame trade, and, you know, in personal approach would be something more like this. Let me show you. I'd be more looking like, okay, put it below the previous swing low, something like that, right? A breakout, retest, and continuations, looking for that overall push back on up to the previous high. That's the main area of previous resistance as well as targets. We also got a nice little target there, 156.5, give or take, where we had kind of this shelf, and you have a couple different levels like that. So these are, in my opinion, like targets if we were to break out. So if you were to break, retest, higher highs, higher lows, that sort of thing, we could march our way back up to some of these levels, and keeping that stop loss relatively tight would be the name of the game here for me on pound yen. So do like that one. We'll keep tabs on that and talk about it in the stream for sure this week. Aussie yen is the next one. Aussie yen really struggling, right? Can't seem to find a bottom. Very weak bounce towards the end of the week last week, and consistent lower highs. So Australian dollar still under a lot of pressure, despite the yen having a little bit of weakness recently. The Australian dollar has just been sold off with global stock markets, it seems like. So for this one, for the time being, downward structure still in play. I am more bullish on this, believe it or not. I'm more bullish on this pair than I am bearish, just because I am bearish on the yen, but I'm not willing to jump into a bunch of buy trades until we see, similar to the pound yen, I want to see a sign of strength, because this thing could just continue to bleed out for who knows however long, right? The main idea would be a breakout to the upside, right? Something like this, pullbacks, retracements, looking for that great risk reward, and looking for opportunities after the market has already started to show us a little bit of revival, a little bit of strength. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. Last one for the day is NZDUSD. Take a look. Also, just absolutely getting tanked. And this one, you know, people are asking, Nick, is it going to bottom out? The thing is, maybe it will, but we haven't seen any signs of it, right? Trying to assume that this thing is going to stop free falling is a very dangerous game to play, as it seems like the path of least resistance is more sell pressure until further notice. So until we start to see a bottom, until we start to see structure form again, and we start to see higher lows, something like that, this thing is not in buy territory for me. If anything, against the dollar, it looks more like a sell. So retests of resistance, that sort of thing, more interesting in my mind. So if we were to start to see something like this, right? that could be more interesting than anything else in my personal take. So that's what I'm thinking this week, you guys. Hey, if you're not already in the Discord, this week is a busy week and we'd love to have you join us. Come see the trades that are being taken by myself and our other top traders, Patrick, Annie, Ivan, myself. We have chat rooms available, coaching calls that you can jump in on. Use the promo code down below and you'll get a discount on your membership. You can choose the monthly, the yearly, or a one-time payment. All of those are available. If you would like to take your trading to the next level, this is absolutely, no question, the place to be. And that's why I mentioned it so much. It really is a product that we can stand behind. It's something that we've worked really, really hard. Myself and the rest of our staff here at A1 Trading have built this community from the ground up to be the best place for traders. So if you're looking for a trading community, come join us. We'd love to have you. Link is down below in the description, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.